We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is the Doomsday Podcast, and a very special edition coming live from a suite high atop AT&T Stadium. Ed Werder was, beautiful view, Ed, as you turn around to look at this. Ed Werder was doing radio duty for Westwood One. Ed, I thought you looked good down there. You seemed to be really engaged, and thought you brought a lot of energy down there. Tell us real quick, did you go to each sideline? Yeah. Did you spend more time on one sideline than the other? What was your evening like?
Well, oftentimes this job of being a sideline reporter in the game, kind of limits you for the most part to reporting injury updates and what's happening in and around the blue medical tents on the sidelines. Tonight there weren't really a lot of injuries of great consequence, so there was a lot of observational reporting. And I was on both sidelines. I would say the most interesting thing that I witnessed was after Kevin Byard intercepted Dak Prescott in the end zone early in the game, he ran to the star and celebrated almost like Terrell Owens when he was still wearing a San Francisco 49ers uniform. And then Byron Jones and some other players took exception to it. So I'm watching on the sidelines. I'm standing about 5 feet away from Mike Vrabel, the head coach, who walks over to Wesley Woodyard, their defensive captain, and he tells him to go tell Byard and those guys to knock it off, that he doesn't want that kind of behavior any further in the future in this game. And so that was kind of interesting to witness how Vrabel handled that situation. I thought he did it nicely. He allowed a teammate to be involved in communicating his desires, but he did take issue with it right away and brought a stop to it as quickly as possible.
Did you, Ed, and we'll, of course, get to this 28-14 crushing loss for the Cowboys. They fall to 3-5. We've got some commentary. You'll hear Ed and I talking to Jerry Jones after the game, and Jerry is really, and you'll hear the tone of his voice and what he talked about. And Ed, before we get to it, you and I will talk about, because we've been around him a lot of times, this was a different thing. If you're hoping for a coaching change, tonight is what you were looking for. And I think the shock, Ed, of coming off a bye week, I think there's some expectation that if you have a bye week, they went 3-4, they were playing the Titans who were 3-4, there is some thought that you have that much time, you should come out, be pretty sharp. And it wasn't so much that they lost the game, it was really more about how poorly they played.
That was the point he kept making. He was disappointed with how they played the game. He said, I could accept the loss as hard as it would be if the performance in it were better. But the performance was not what he expected, and that's understandable. I mean, first of all, there's their history coming off the bye week, which they've been one of the best teams in football coming off the bye week. There's the fact that you're playing at home where you haven't lost all year. There's the fact that you're playing a 3-win team that's lost 4 games in a row. And then there's the fact that you, as the owner and general manager of this franchise, have made 2 moves during the bye week of great consequence to try to improve your team and give them a chance to go win the NFC East. You traded your first-round pick for a starting wide receiver in Amari Cooper. You fired, for the first time since Jason Garrett's been a head coach, you fired an assistant coach during the season and elevated Mark Colombo to that post and brought in Hudson Houck from a 7-year retirement as an advisor. So, of course, Jerry had rightly expected a much better performance than was delivered here. And let's put it in perspective. The reason that they did all this is because the Titans were the offense the Cowboys didn't want to become. Like, they're horrible on offense, and the Cowboys just allowed them a season-high 28 points in their own building. And this is the worst loss for the Cowboys, 14 points, coming off a bye week since 2004. And that's the reason people are asking questions about Jason Garrett's future.
Yeah, and also it came up about, Scott Linehan. Could there be any changes? Now, you'll hear Jerry did definitively say there will be no in-season coaching change. He will not make a head coaching change. I tried to get some...
you said something like tonight, you mean?
I don't know if he appreciated my snark this evening.
Nobody does, especially in a moment like that. But it was a dark, downcast moment for Jerry, and you're poking fun at him. Anyway, which I admired. But I think he can say that, and I think he means that. But there's a caveat in that. He said the same thing in 2010 before he fired Wade Phillips during the season. And the thing that forced his hand was how hard the players continued to play in a lost season. They were 1-7, I believe, at the time. Well, they're not that now. But the season is quickly turning into a hopeless proposition for the Dallas Cowboys, no matter how bad the other teams in the NFC East might be. And so I think Jason Garrett's probably safe through the end of the season, provided his players don't quit on him like they quit on Wade Phillips.
Yeah, and we saw that happen. That was mid-season. We're at that same juncture, but the record's a little better, and the relationship with Jason is a little different than what Jerry had with Wade. Although Jerry hated doing that, he just felt like he had to. And interestingly, that is when Jason sort of proved himself to a certain extent. By the way, the team finished out that season. They rallied a bit. And so that was when Jason Garrett was extended the offer. I got the sense, Ed, as many times as we've been around Jerry after those games. I mean, they're just here's who he's going to defend at this point. I didn't hear any really defense of Garrett. I didn't hear. Now he defended Colombo, but in HUD because they just made those moves, and I think he was pleased with that they tried to come in and make some changes. Here's who he's going to try to just completely...
He defended Dak Prescott.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The quarterback is who he is standing by right now. And you and I joked about it. What he basically was saying is one thing that Dak has been really good at in his 3 seasons is protecting the football.
Well, he's not good at that anymore.
Not right now.
He's
not in the last 3 games.
He's been sacked a lot. He's been hit a lot. He's clearly lost confidence in his offensive line, and justifiably so. That being said, he's fumbled 7 times in the last 3 games. He's lost 5 fumbles in the last 3 games, and you can't win like that. And then he forced an interception in the end zone. Amari Cooper makes a great double move early in the game, gets the Cowboys on the scoreboard first, cashing into turnover that the defense created for him. And then he tries to force a ball. He's double covered. He has no chance of catching that ball. It was almost an arrogant throw like, we'll show you how good Amari Cooper is, and we'll justify this first-round pick we gave up to him. Even when it appears he's covered, he can still score touchdowns. And Bayard picked it off, and that was really the big turning point in the game. I mean, the Cowboys had every reason to take a 17-0 lead in this game. The Titans turned the ball over their first 2 possessions and nearly their third. It was called a turnover on the field, their third possession, a fumble. And then overturned. But the Cowboys should have been up 17-0 in the first quarter of this game, and that would have forced the Titans to play the kind of game that they're ill-equipped to win, which is throwing the football on every down.
I think you're right. And, boy, it seems bad karma to me, Ed, when you constantly go down there and you take your team photos in the end zone and you just kind of throw that in the Titans' face. I thought at that point in the game, you said it could have been 17-0, Meyer or whatever we call him, Brett, the
Brett
kicker.
Maher, he missed a field goal.
He missed a field goal down there. But I think that is kind of some karma stuff. I think at that point it was kind of like, we're the better team. We're going to take care of business. We're at home.
Well,
they let the Titans.
It was kind of like everything that Jalen Smith had said during the week, right? He talked about needing to. What do the Cowboys need to do to be an elite defense? They already ranked as one of the best in the league, second, in fact, to the Titans in red zone defense. They were able to win on third down, 39% of the time going into the game. They'd allowed the fewest points in the league, the fewest 20-yard plays in the league. So what did they need to do to play better and take it to the next level? And he said to be an elite defense, we need to, force turnovers. We need to get sacks and knock the ball loose and score points on defense. And they very, very nearly did all of those things. Tank comes off the end and knocks the ball out of Mariota's hands, and Sean Lee recovers it, and the Cowboys score a touchdown, and then it happens again. They get the ball back again. They miss the field goal, right?
Yeah.
So and then they had the pick in the end zone. So it was just a bad turn of events. They didn't capitalize early on, and that's what, to their credit, that's what the Titans are the best in the league at. Like they have a lot of shortcomings, but the thing that they do better than any team in the league statistically through this point in the season is they stop opponents in the red zone from scoring touchdowns, and they do it 2 out of 3 times statistically, and that's what they did in the first quarter against the Cowboys. They stopped them 2 out of 3 times.
Well, this is a downtrodden bunch right now, and Ed, I have to say that if you were, what's that ESPN? You know how at certain points of the season or a certain point of games, they'll give people a percentage of winning the game. Like I would imagine when the Cowboys were down 28-14 with 3 minutes to go, they had like a 2% chance of winning that game.
Well, I believe I saw a number that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were 1-6 when down 7 or more in the fourth quarter in his career as a starting quarterback. So that
makes sense. Here's the stat I'm going to throw out that I don't really need ESPN for this. It's just my own thing I've come up with. Right now, at this very juncture of the season, Jason Garrett, in my mind, has an 85% chance of being fired. And they're sitting at 3-5. Jerry, and you'll hear him in a minute, he just looked and sounded shell-shocked. He was as down as I've seen him because the way they played. He could deal with a loss, but to come out and play that uninspired. So I don't know.
Again, I think he took it as a personal betrayal because of all he did during the bye week.
You're right.
As the general manager, all the front office did to try to fix their problems and give them incentive and make them enthusiastic. I mean, I went over to the start of this week and Dak was uncharacteristically enthusiastic despite being 3-4 as a quarterback and despite his own future being undetermined. I mean, he was ecstatic, and it was all because they had gotten Amari Cooper, and they just went out there and did nothing with it.
No, it was embarrassing, and I thought the real Ed. I don't know if you saw it as you were down the sideline. I saw it from the press box as Jason Garrett walked off the field. A fan tried to hand him a Dodger dog.
I missed that one.
Ed, so much to get to here. I want to thank a sponsor of ours and really big, MyBookie. Ed, you were covering this game, so you couldn't really bet on it. But I always tell people to use MyBookie. You trust them. They've been in business for years, have great reviews online, and their mobile site extremely easy. And when you go to MyBookie, here's one of the great things. I may have tried some offshore things in my past, Ed. I don't want to get too specific here. One of the things that kind of gets you about these sites, sometimes it's a little hard to get your money. At MyBookie, they pay, and they pay immediately. They have in-game live betting, the most rewarding player perks in the business. And for you fantasy guys out there, you can even bet the over-under on how many fantasy points a player will score each game. Use the promo code Doomsday, DOOMSDAY, to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie online today. That's MyBookie, MyBookie. And don't forget to use the promo code Doomsday when creating your account to claim up to $1,000 in free play. You play, you win, you get paid. All right, Ed, let's set this up. You're going to hear from Jerry. You've been around Jerry a lot after games. You were having to wrap up some stuff you did with the Titans. Who was your interview for the Titans, by the way? I didn't get to see.
The running back, Deion Lewis, who had
he was good. Yeah,
60 yards rushing, 60 yards receiving, made a spectator of Derrick Henry, the former second-round running back out of Alabama.
Yeah,
really took over the lead role at running back, scored a touchdown on a screen pass, had a 30-plus yard screen pass play in the fourth quarter to help close out the game. So we went with his observations.
So he squirted around all over the field, and he was very impressive. And former guy, obviously, with the Patriots. Ed, so by the time you finished up with him, we had already started in on Jerry, and you've been around Jerry a lot after these games. What about? And you'll hear both questions from myself and Ed as we get into this. What about Jerry's demeanor? His countenance, so to speak, what stood out to you?
It's very unusual that you catch Jerry in a situation where he's honest about his frustration and describing his team's play as being so substandard and so below his own expectations. Usually Jerry's the kind of guy who's pumping sunshine all the time, and this wasn't that by any measure. And you think further about, all of the advantages that they had in this game. You forget that Jason Witten was back for the first time as a Cowboy. There was a ceremony before the game, and so it was an electricity in the crowd. And then they got those early turnovers and the chance to take a big lead, and they just failed by every measure to meet Jerry's expectations. And it isn't often that he acknowledges it in a moment so close to the end of the game.
Were you okay with the Jason Witten tribute? You infamously were critical of the Tony Romo tribute.
I was only critical in saying they didn't do this for Troy Aikman, and he is a celebrated, high-level network partner broadcaster, and it seems to me he won a few more Super Bowl rings than certain other people that might have been given more acclaim when they came back. I don't remember the Welcome Home Troy banners like there were for Witten and Romo, and that's all fine and well. That's for them to decide how they want to do it. I'm just saying, I just think Troy deserved that too, if anybody did.
Gotcha. And Witten, they said Witten looked pretty emotional. He was going to make some remarks right after that on ESPN, but they said Joe Tessitore talked over him.
I know everybody was worried about, as I talked to some of the people on the broadcast crew, and they were very concerned about Witten being able to, control his emotions under the circumstances.
He did fine. He was good in the second quarter. I was listening to it from the press box, the broadcast, and he did some good. People have been beating up on him a lot. He's going to be okay. They thought they were getting Romo. He's not Romo. He's not that witty. No pun intended. It's just not him. He is smart, and he knows football like crazy, and if allowed to, and put in the right situations, he can be good. This has not been a great booth for him, and I don't want to go too far into it on that respect. Ed's still paid by ESPN, so I don't want him to comment too much on it. All right, let's go. And
actually, Witten did say something critical, I think, of the Cowboys late in the game about the trick play with Cole Beasley from the opposing, from the Titans' 20-yard line. They had a trick reverse play where Cole Beasley, who hadn't been given the ball all night, suddenly now becomes the featured attraction when they're down 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter, and then he's given the ball on a reverse and expected to stop and throw back to Dak Prescott from the 12. You need all this to score in the final minutes from the 12-yard line when you're down 2 touchdowns. And he said something to the effect of, that's one of the things that's the kind of frustrating thing that makes you realize why you didn't come back.
That's interesting.
Let's hear Jerry, and then
we'll have
maybe have another conversation.
I think we'll have a few more comments. This is Jerry Jones moments after the 28-14 loss to the lowly Tennessee Titans.
Jerry, when they missed that field goal, did you kind of feel like, okay, you're in pretty good shape there when they it was 21-14 and they hit one off the upright there? Were you feeling pretty good about y'all's chances at that point?
I didn't like the way we had played, but I knew that we were capable of making some plays. I definitely thought that was the break that would turn momentum and give us a chance to take it down the field and be in the ball game. In the NFL, we were in that ball game the last time we went down the field when we were down 10. We were in that ball game in the NFL. We had to get a touchdown. We had to get a score to be in the ball game. But you guys have seen enough of these to know you're in it. And I think that we've got players that can make those plays.
Jerry, what did you make of the Cole Beasley trick play, and especially the time that it was run there at the end?
Yeah, I thought that Cole really made a heck of a play to get that ball and get the pass off. And that play doesn't bother me at the end.
What's the thing that disappoints you most about this game?
I think the way that we had an opportunity to come in here at home and take some fresh legs and take some additions that we had made, and I very candidly didn't see this coming. I thought we would be sitting here with a positive result. This is a surprise to me and is a setback. Now, when you're halfway through the season, losing a ball game in the NFL, if that causes you to be deterred or to not think that there's a future ahead of you, then you picked the wrong world to operate in. That's not the life we've chosen.
Now, how do you feel about it going forward? Because you're about to embark on the toughest stretch of the season.
Yeah, and I think that we've got to play each possession, we've got to play each series, and we've got to go out here and just take it one at a time. We've got to look for some positive things. I think I'd have loved to have had Gregory out there tonight. I'd have loved to have had Irving out there tonight. I'm not making excuses. We had some guys make some good plays, but I think we've got a lot to work with in terms of our team and in terms of being not only competitive but winning some ball games. I do. I will say this: I really had this with our bye week, with some of the ways that 19 had done some things at practice and with some of the plans that we had offensively and the way our defense was playing. What was surprising was to not be able to stop them from sustaining those long, time-consuming drives. That was a surprise. It still is. I'm anxious to get a better look at that.
Do you feel like you're still in the NFC East race at this point?
Again, I don't. Right now, I don't like the way that we played tonight. Had we played a lot better tonight and had the loss, then I would be more positive about that. We've got to play better. We're not in anything if we don't play better. We have to play better. And we did not play good. For whatever the reason, after that first spurt of energy there in the early part of the game, we just didn't play very well.
You've continued to publicly back both Linehan and Garrett. Why?
Well, again, I'm not in the business of backing anybody. They're my head coach and they're my coordinator, and so I just don't not back them publicly.
Jerry, what's left for you in the front office to do to turn things around? I mean, you made 2 moves during the bye week, and now with the trading deadline passes, limited things you can do, pretty much half and half.
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do. The question is meaningful things that could change things for the positive. No, I don't. Those are time constraint, longer term things that probably will win the day rather than something to do for next week.
Jerry, you talked about that initial spurt of energy. Do you feel that Dak interception in the back of the end zone kind of turned things around and got the Titans back in it?
I wouldn't go to that play. I'll say this: we sure had a lot of momentum going there. I think going down there and not getting a score period, field goals or touchdown, and not doing that was hurt our momentum. Yes, I can look back to that point and say that the energy or our ability to execute or ability to play football positively. From that point on, we didn't seem like we had as much going for us. On the other hand, I know that can inspire the other team as well. and they look up, and then they turn around and tied it and look up and got ahead and got a touchdown. And after all the turnovers and everything, that was a momentum issue.
Jerry, these next
negatively toward us.
These next 8 games, are you looking specifically for results? Given the age of your roster, are you looking for improvement more than anything else? Or is this about results these next 8 games?
Well, I, first of all, look at what we do daily, and look at what we do by the week, certainly at this time of the year. And, I think that you look for results. You look for, you're going to have action. You're going to have activity no matter what at every level of our team. And how that, the enthusiasm, how people react when under pressure, how they react, how individuals react in adverse conditions. All of those things are important to assess, and they certainly have. For one, I look back on my personal activity and look at how I've acted in adverse situations, and I look how I've acted in real positive situations. I think I do better in an adverse situation than I do in positive situations. Both those frauds will tear your ass up.
Jerry, is there any situation in which you would make a head coaching change in season?
No.
Not tonight.
I didn't say that. I just gave the big old no.
What's your level of concern about Dak turning the ball so often? It was kind of his hallmark as a rookie. He was very good taking the ball.
I go back. I've seen him not turn it over, and then we've seen him recently make the turnovers. And once you see him turn it over, then you know they can turn it over. And once you see them not turn it over and play with a good ball security, then you know they can play that way. Once you see somebody play that way, unless something to do with their loss of talent or in some cases the length of time they've been playing, but he's on his era's up. His era is up physically and it's up mentally. And so that having seen him and know that his consciousness is to protect the ball is, I think, one of his virtues, and I think that I'm going to go with that.
You said no to a head coaching change mid-season. What about an offensive coordinator change?
Again, I don't want to go down the list at anything. I'm not anticipating any more coaching changes.
There he was, Jerry Jones, after the Cowboys' loss, and Ed really, he didn't expect it. He was surprised. You hear Jerry a lot of times say, hey, I expected this team to be really good, or I knew this would be a tough game in Seattle. You know, he'll talk about that. He just really expected the Cowboys to play better in this game, and I think there were a couple of positives he could take away. But, Ed, I have to say, I mean, and we hit on it a little bit earlier, one thing he's going to try to do, and he's going to keep doing it this season, is stand by this quarterback. I don't necessarily think he's going to end up standing by this head coach, although he's done it a lot. What did you make of him? It probably wasn't a surprise to either one of us, but for him to say definitively, no, there will be no in-season coaching change.
I mean, I just think that's a question he doesn't want to have to answer after every game going forward. I think it's a fair question under the circumstances because he was so obviously disappointed by the result and admitted as much. And let's put it in this context. The one thing that Jason Garrett is known for as a Cowboys coach is mediocrity, right? Nobody does 8-8 like Jason Garrett does 8-8. And since he's become the Cowboys coach, they played 14 games while they were one game below 500. And in those 14 games, the Cowboys were 12-2, getting back to 500. Tonight, they didn't do it. They had the same chance, and they failed. They couldn't even get to 500 under Jason Garrett now. It's something that they've almost always done. And they've lost at home, and they've lost back-to-back games for the first time in 10 games. This thing's on a really downward trajectory now if you look at the schedule that they have. I mean, yeah, the Cowboys got to debut at home after the bye week, the new receiver that they just acquired. Well, guess what? Next week, the Philadelphia Eagles, they're coming off a bye, and they're going to debut the new wide receiver that they acquired at the trading deadline for a lot less than a first-round pick because he's probably a rental player. But that's how this starts. Then they go to Atlanta. Atlanta's going to score 100 points on them, and then the Saints are going to score 200 points on them. So I think it's not surprising that he defended the quarterback. I think the quarterback's play was very poor in this game, and I've not been one to criticize Dak Prescott harshly or unfairly in my mind. But the turnovers were both the result of poor judgment. They were both very hurtful to his team. They scored off both of them ultimately. He got sacked 5 times again. I know in talking to him, he thought, hey, I watched the tape. I saw that this is a defense that I think I can get outside and make some plays on, running the football like Deshaun Watson did when he had 44 yards, season high for him rushing. And Dak really never did much. He 2 carries for 11 yards. And he thought that he could get Cole Beasley and Amari Cooper 100-yard games, and they fell well short of that. Cooper had 58 yards, and Beasley had 16, all of it in the fourth quarter. So I don't know that anybody's expectations were met. I guess you got to give, the Titans some credit for the horrible loss they had in London when Vrabel went for it at the end of the game to try to win on the final play instead of taking the tie and forcing overtime. They had a long time to think about that. And they came here, and they overcame a lot of early adversity. And it's sort of characteristic of the kind of player that Mike Vrabel was, that they hung in there, they showed some tenacity, and they overcame all of the adversity and wound up winning the game quite decisively.
Can you think about all the teams this year the Cowboys have helped jumpstart their seasons? I mean, we'll see what the Titans do from here. The Texans, I believe, were 1-3. They have not lost since. The Cowboys, and then the Seattle, they have lost. They lost this past week, but Seattle,
they were on a good run for a while.
They were on a nice run, and they're 4-4, and they're at least kind of hanging in there as a team. But it just seems like teams that are sort of really struggling face the Cowboys, and they kind of right the ship.
Yeah. And Marcus Mariota, was coming off that elbow injury, and tonight was the first time in 5 weeks he didn't have to wear a glove, and because of his grip on the football, needed some assistance when he had this elbow injury. And tonight was the first time all season that he had a quarterback rating of over 100. He was one of only 3 regular starting quarterbacks coming into the game, Case Keenum and Josh Rosen being the others, who did not have a game where they had a passer rating of over 100. And tonight he goes for 119.9, and he ran the football, pretty well. 32 yards and a touchdown late in the game. Cowboys have been pretty good against running quarterbacks. They've lost to running quarterbacks this year, but almost every team they've played has featured a running quarterback, including Carolina and Houston and to an extent the Redskins. But I know that they like to play all their best athletes on defense when they're playing these running quarterbacks. And obviously tonight they didn't have Randy Gregory, and they didn't have David Irving, who's a freak of nature. And that hurt their cause, but there's really no excuse for losing this game tonight with the advantages that they had early on.
It was a pitiful effort, and it was one that early in the game you just thought, this looked almost, I thought this started on like they were playing Jacksonville. It had that feel like
blowout.
This could be a blowout for the Cowboys, and then it didn't end up going that direction. Ed, let's talk to a man who's been known to be a little profane at times, and he can get worked up, and I know he's worked up
only
about
because he cares.
This this lackluster performance from the Cowboys. It's time for our segment, That's a Stretch, with Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys coach and scout. We are spent an hour or so recording this. We're at the suite. Thank you to the Nation family and their beautiful suite up here on the silver level. I would give you the suite, but I don't really think they want you to stop by and visit with them. We've got Stretch with us, Glenn Stretch Smith, joining us. And Stretch has already done his TV work tonight. We'll be going position by position, but Stretch, real quick, your overall thoughts on this performance by the Cowboys as they lose this one, 28-14, their first home loss of the season.
Yeah, considering they come up an off week They fire Paul Alexander. They trade for Amari Cooper. I mean, they had every reason to go and get to 500 tonight. Washington lost this week. I mean, they could get within a game of first place in the NFC East and may have played one of the most uninspired football games I've seen this team play maybe since I was coaching here, and we were 5-11 back-to-back years and got our ass fired. And we deserve to get fired. And right now, looking at the way that this team played tonight, I just don't know how you can keep them in the loop as far as understanding what was at stake here and understanding really what there was to play for. It's amazing how poorly this football team played and how uninspired they played.
Yeah, it was pretty embarrassing what they came out and did, and that is interesting. One of the most uninspired. And one of the things that Stretch, that was one of the things Jerry talked about, and of course our audience will hear from Jerry. Let's run through these positions. Pretty uninspiring on both sides of the ball. Let's start on the offensive side. Stretch, the quarterback was 21 for 31, threw for 243 yards, had that interception in the end zone, and then, of course, had the fumble. What did you make of his overall play, and how would you grade the quarterback?
Well, the turnover in the end zone is a killer. I mean, that was obviously a play that was designed to be a play action and then run across to Cooper. It was very it was one of those things where if it wasn't there, I would like to have seen him throw that football away. I have no idea what he saw there. And then to be able to fumble the football in a very critical situation, to me, it just it goes along with the way that he's been taking care of the football, and I can't give him a winning grade. I mean, at best, I'd have to give him a D for the way he played tonight.
To me, Stretch, this is the most disturbing thing of all as it relates to Dak Prescott, that suddenly he's using poor judgment and he's failing to protect the football, which was his forte when he came here and had great success as a rookie. These were two mistakes based on bad decision-making, thinking he could, A, force the ball to Cooper in double coverage, and secondly, on third and long, he's not just going to the ground and saving, trying to make the best of a bad play.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I go back, guys, to Wade Wilson, and I know I have a connection to Wade, but Wade was in charge of red zone offense and what they did in the red zone. He was also the quarterback coach, a very experienced guy who's played in about every offense you could play in the NFL. And the thought of him being replaced by a guy that was on the practice squad last year is maddening. And I say it's maddening because this is a quarterback who still has to develop. And with the replacement of him being replaced by Kellen Moore is something that's, really, really blows me away.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to see, and I think it's pretty apparent at this point. And I think Jerry's not ready to make any more changes, but certainly major changes could be on the way if they keep playing like this. Okay, Stretch, the decision was made to fire the offensive line coach, Paul Alexander. Mark Colombo is elevated to O-line coach. Hudson Houck, I saw him after the game. Our old friend, a legendary offensive line coach from the Jimmy Johnson days. What did you make of this group and how they played?
Well, and this group did not play well as a group. I mean, there were some things done individually that I thought, okay, that looks more like the technique that they used to play. But as a group, as a whole, as a group that needs to be more physical, again, they need to be like five big dancing bears. I mean, one play it was Connor Williams. The next play it was the chip, and Collins loses his guy inside. I mean, they have to become a unit and become a one as one. And no more using Travis Frederick as an excuse. He's gone, and so I didn't see this group was really disappointing to me because I thought they would come out and be more physical at the point of attack. It didn't look like that was the case tonight. So I don't know if they're trying to play old techniques, mixing them with new techniques. It's hard to really want to pinpoint the coaching here because the coaches don't make any plays. But again, this is at best a D effort by this offensive line.
All right, and the wide receivers with Amari Cooper coming in, anything that jumped off the page at you? Obviously had some pretty decent numbers, 5 catches, 58 yards, had the touchdown. What was his immediate impact on this offense?
Well, I like this double move initially. I mean, he run the whip route, where you drive it inside and then break it back outside. It was a well-designed play. I like how he runs the slant. I mean, this is a polished route runner. This is somebody that they haven't had on this football team in a while. So I like his impact. I thought Thompson did an okay job. He's more of a slot guy, and you can tell he's comfortable in there. I saw some things out of Gallup that I like. And so, this group to me of the, all the offensive positions, I thought they played well enough to at least give you, what would have been, I think, a winning grade. But, as uninspired as it was, again, the best I can give that group is a C.
All right, C for the wide receivers. What did you give to the running back?
Well, I'm going to go to the tight ends first because that really concerns me. I think that Dak is really missing Jason Witten, guys. We've talked about this multiple times. There is not a tight end on this roster right now that can run a good inside route on those 3rd and 4 to 6 situations, and it's killing this team. You combine that with, I don't think they're very good point of attack blockers. This group to me got a D, and the only reason they got a D was because I did see some things down in the goal line that at least inspired me a little bit. I'm not a fan of Schultz. I think he's got to get stronger, and they've got to get stronger as a group at the point of attack.
And they did play without Jeff Swain tonight, who's their best receiving tight end, I would say.
Right, exactly, and that's a good point. I mean, yeah, and you're right. I mean, he is the best tight end that they have. But when you're missing those guys, that concerns me that there's that little depth at that position. And they tried to address it in the draft, and that young man is just not good enough at the point of attack. And for this offense to really get going, the tight end position is vital. It's vital in the passing game, and it's also vital for the run to be able to block the perimeter. And, boy, it did not get done tonight.
All right, anything Zeke looked like he was going to have a big night from the start. Certainly had some catches and made some plays along the sideline there on that one catch that went for a pretty long gain. What did you think of his overall play?
Okay. I mean, he's such a – again, he's a good blocker. I like the screen pass that set him up early to get down in there. He's a really good screen runner. He's a smart player. It just was, they for whatever reason, man, somebody, and I don't know formationally if they're giving away what they're doing or what, but boy, I mean, every time he runs the football, it seems like there's an 8-man box, a 9-man box. And I think that, for whatever reason, Lanahan cannot get in. He cannot get in the rhythm. He has not been in the rhythm since the Jacksonville game. And right now, the play calling rhythm, I think, is hurting the running back position. And so, he gets a C, but it's a marginal C or D.
All right, and then let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball, and let's start.
They had it going early on defense.
Yeah, they did, and they were down there taking some pictures in the end zone. They thought they had a third turnover in that first half, but as the game went on, Tennessee fought back and was able to sustain some long drives. Stretch, let's start up front. Some sacks, 4 sacks in this game for the Cowboys. What did you see up front from this group?
Yeah, I saw a group like I think Ed was mentioning. I mean, early on they were running some stunts. They were getting there. Lawrence did a nice job on that strip and sack. I saw Armstrong running around, making some plays. I saw the inside guys, to me, Woods, Ross. I mean, they were doing some things that was really causing Tennessee some problems. I thought, though, the unfortunate thing was it looked like they tired late in the game. And I'm saying tired as if they weren't chasing the football like they were early in the game. And I think that, obviously when you have Conklin and Lewan, they're big physical tackles and edge blockers, they were able to make some hay there. And, their play caller, Tennessee's play caller, was in a nice rhythm. And I think it affected this defensive line, along with the fact that they tend to tire late in the game. It's almost like you wanted to give them, a B in the first half and a D in the second half. I just didn't see the production when they needed to make big stops. And I'm saying make big stops. I think, when you look at the first statistic you looked at, I think they were 11 of 14 or something like that, maybe late in the game in third downs. You got to get off the field. You got to get your offense to football. So I don't know that I can, I don't know that I can really give this group a winning grade, even though they played well in the first half. It's really a telltale sign that they couldn't get off the field in critical third down situations.
Well, they played a lot of snaps on defense, obviously, because they couldn't get off the field, and their offense did very little throughout the night. And their depth on the defensive line was affected by, not having David Irving and not having the left end Randy Gregory tonight. So that hurt.
Yeah, you're right, Ed, and that's a good point. I mean, Gregory and Irving not having that rotational look in there, not being able to, they played Crawford some at end. I think he's a better three technique player, and I think that hurt him. So, yeah, you could, there's some things you can point to. I think you make a good point. They didn't keep the ball. They didn't keep drives alive, and again, tiring. I just think that it was a difficult situation for that defensive line tonight. And it's a group that I'm high on. I mean, there were some things by Armstrong tonight that really give you reason to be, excited as a Cowboy fan. Once you get that rotation, you get all those guys going in there. But as far as tonight's effort, I mean, I just point to, again, the one statistic, and I think that's a killer statistic.
Yeah, the Titans were unbelievable on third down, and Ed, as we move to linebacker, this has been a group that's played sideline to sideline. I thought we saw Van Der Esch actually miss some tackles tonight when he had some opportunities on the sideline. You did see Jalen Smith with the fumble recovery, and as far as Sean Lee, he's now out with another hamstring injury, and who knows how long he might be out. What did you see from that linebacker group?
Yeah, you know what? I think Van Der Esch is still growing into the position. I think this is a position as a Cowboy fan. The arrow is moving up. He did miss some open field tackles. I think he'll get better, with his angles, taking angles, knowing how to attack. I saw some good things in the him in his drops and how he drops, how he reads and recognizes routes and combinations that was, that were encouraging. Obviously, they did a great job of, schematically running that zone read and then allowing, hit the quarterback to pull the football and flip it on the shovel pass for the touchdown. So, there were some things that obviously were, could fool a young linebacker, but I think this young man is continuing to improve, and I really like his upside. And to me, again, this is I'm going to give this group a C grade, but only because of the telltale sign that they couldn't get off the field. I do see some good things and some reason to be, feeling good about the linebacking core of, with Jalen Smith and Leighton Van Der Esch.
All right, and then the DBs. What did you make of that play? Down the middle, Xavier Woods was a little late getting over on the big throw down the seam. But obviously Mariota was able to make some plays, and Corey Davis, a nice young receiver for the Titans, had some pretty decent yardage. What did you make of these DBs?
Yeah, I think that, they caught the Cowboys in the right coverage there as far as, they were trying to play that Tampa 2, and Sean Lee was trying to run with him through the middle of the field. That's a tough situation when you don't get your hands on what was the number 2 receiver off the ball. I think the thing that concerns me more is the corners. There are going to be times when you're going to get your hand on the football, and I thought him and Byron Jones tonight got really exposed from those timing route. From the aspect of running timing routes, and when you look at the schedule that's coming up, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New Orleans, I mean, this is a group that has concerned me all year. They got challenged tonight, and I didn't think they were up to the challenge. Now, I was encouraged when I did see Byron Jones get his hand on that. They ran that deep dig, and he got his hand on the football, but boy, that they have got to come up and be more physical, on these third down situations to where, they can either play man coverage, try to get their hands on these guys, or when they do make that initial cut, man, you got to break on the ball. And I can't give this group anything better than a D.
Yeah, and boy, you've seen Heath before play pretty physical and likes to get up in the box, but number 60 for the Titans pretty much drove him all the way to the end zone on one of those touchdowns. Dion Lewis on those little dump passes, the screens, really gave the Cowboys fits, and they were just having trouble getting off some of those blocks, it seemed. Stretch, any final thoughts on this one? I think you said it best. I mean, one of the most uninspiring efforts you had seen in a long time, and boy, at 3-5, even though you're not completely out of the division race, Stretch, this does not feel like a staff that is long for this team.
Yeah, they're guys. Let's not kid ourselves. They're out of the division race. I don't care what anybody says. When you look at the schedule that's in front of them, nothing tells you that this team is going to be able to go win, say, 4 out of the next 5 games. And that's what it would take literally to get back into the division race. There will not be a team come out of the East that's a wild card team. Not when you look at the South, yep, and not when you look at some of the other divisions in the NFC that I'm sure Ed will talk about. But you know what, guys, this is what it is. This is going to be a tough second half of the season. It's going to be tough to get on this podcast and talk about it because right now this football team is the shits, man, and they're not playing very well. And so I just I'm not going to try to sit up here and say that it's something that it's not. That they're not playing good. The quarterback, looks like his confidence has been shaken some. This offensive line is in transition from one coach to the other coach. And until they can get on the same page, until they can get an offensive coordinator that they have some confidence in, it really reeks of a. And I like Jason. I've always liked Jason, but the message from the head coach, it looks like it's getting stagnant. And so I think it's going to be a long next 2 months for us getting on here, and hopefully we'll have something positive to talk about. But right now, as I sit here Monday night, it's the shit. I don't know how to say it any different than that.
I won't argue with your terminology. Maybe it's appropriateness, but not the terminology in general. When you look at the fact that they have to play the Eagles twice yet, including next week when they're coming off a bye. They still have to play the Saints. They still have to play at the Falcons. I mean, how many points are those teams going to score?
Well, and I think that's the point, Ed. I mean, and you've talked a couple of times in this segment about injuries that the Eagles are getting healthy. I mean, Sproles is coming back. You know what I mean? They're going to be hitting their stride, and so I just think when you see the uninspired football that you saw tonight, I'm not sure how. I just don't know. I'm not sure how they can rally the troops. I'm not sure. Jason can shut the door over there and kind of get this thing going. I'm really disappointed in how uninspired this team played because when I look over and Leon Lett was probably the most inspiring thing I saw on 3rd and 8 when he was trying to get them going a little bit. That raises a real concern for me.
Because that's not really Leon's personality.
No, not at all. Stretch, we really appreciate it as we come to you live from Cowboy AT&T Stadium tonight, and all our best to you, and appreciate your fine work on Channel 8 tonight in the pregame, and on there with Del Hansen, the moral compass of Dallas-Fort Worth media.
Yeah, he's got everything. He's got everything lined out for you. Make sure you follow his lead tomorrow when you go vote there, Sparky. I know you will.
All right.
I think he's going to admonish you for some of your public profanity.
Stretch. I'm sure Gail doesn't put up with that.
I appreciate it. You know what? Sometimes it's just my simpleton mind, and I tried to think of another word, and it just couldn't come to mind.
There
and
just isn't one that fits quite as perfectly, is there?
That's it. I mean, I could say poop or crap or whatever it is the shits. That's just how it is. So
all right.
Pray for me Sunday in church, Matt.
We'll light a candle.
I'll do it. All my best, Stretch. Good work as usual, and we'll talk to you next Sunday night as the Cowboys take on the Philadelphia Eagles and try to climb back in the NFC East race. There he is. That's a Stretch.
Glenn Stretch Smith, you hear him every week with his grades. And Ed, as we kind of say goodnight out here, and we are out at recording this from AT&T Stadium.
The last of the trash has been swept out of the stadium except for us.
That's right. Well, don't forget about the Cowboys.
Oh, they left long ago.
This was a rough ending, and so a lot of what people will be talking about now. Of course, I've given my 85% chance at this point that Jason Garrett will be fired
before the end of the season.
No. I'm just saying at this point, as they sit here 3-5, there's an 85% chance he's fired whenever. And I would think it would happen at the end of the season.
Okay.
I think Jerry, as long as they don't quit on him completely, will allow him to finish out the season. Which leads me to this. There's a question a lot of Cowboys fans will likely be asking the rest of this question. Who's the next coach of this team? Shall I go first, or do you want to go first? I've got a couple of veteran names. There's going to be one college name that everybody has. Why don't you go first? Do you have any thoughts on if Jerry's sitting there? He's always told us. He always has a short list. And you got to think.
One time Barry Switzer was on his short list, and I think he might have another Oklahoma coach on his short list right now.
Yeah, and who would that be, Ed?
I think that guy's name is Lincoln Riley. Coach Baker Mayfield. I think he's a guy who's going to get some NFL opportunities. And it wouldn't surprise me, given Jerry's relationship with people in Norman, including Switzer, if there weren't some interest there, especially if Jerry really believes that Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback. And I've said he just for the first time made a move that backed up his rhetoric in that regard by giving up a number one pick to acquire Amari Cooper, because he's a young receiver you can build around, like you can build around Ezekiel Elliott and you can build around Dak Prescott. If you don't think that Dak Prescott is your long-term starting quarterback, then you need to keep the number one pick to possibly take a quarterback. So if he believes in Dak Prescott as he says and as it seems, then I think a guy like Lincoln Riley makes a lot of sense, because I think they need to embrace the college style of offensive play to get the best out of a quarterback like Dak Prescott.
If Lincoln Riley didn't take the job, and I'm not certain Jerry would be inclined, even though that's the hot name and that's one connected to the Cowboys. I'm going to bring up somebody you've covered and you've known for a lot of years. There were two names when Jerry hired Wade Phillips. It was Norv and Wade. Norv, 66. He's done an incredible job with Carolina. Would he want one more shot at this thing? That Jerry would have a very certain, comfort level with Norv. That's a name I think has to at least be thought about in this kind of instance, because Jerry goes to people sometimes that who do I feel most comfortable with, and that's a throwback.
Well, and they just did that, right? They demonstrated that that's the way they react to problems, is they try and solve them with the personnel that they had and the style of play that they used in the 1990s when they were winning Super Bowls. That's why Hudson Houck is back here after retiring for 7 years. Norv makes sense. I know that he had an interest in having Norv here when, he was going to hire. The belief that maybe Jason Garrett wasn't quite ready, but was going to be groomed by Norv instead of being the coordinator for Wade, had a lot of appeal to Jerry. I don't know that Norv is willing to be a head coach again. And I don't know how he views the Cowboys' prospects, quite honestly. I think a lot of what Norv is doing in coaching right now is to benefit his son Scott. So if he thought his son Scott might benefit from him being the head coach for the Cowboys, and that might set up Scott for a big opportunity down the line in the near future, then maybe Norv would consider it.
All right, so maybe give Scott the offensive coordinator position. We'll move on, and Norv becomes the head coach. The other name I would throw out there, and I would have to give Stretch the credit for this name, but it is someone that Jerry's very familiar with, and he was a highly successful college coach, Les Miles, and he was a former Cowboys assistant.
Tight ends coach, I believe.
Yeah, but that's the kind of...
That seems like a hard sell. And I think Norv is a hard sell here under the circumstances of, God, we're going back to the 90s again. You know, we just tried that with Garrett. We tried that with Hudson Houck and the offensive line approach, you know.
I'm just saying, I don't think Jerry's dying to do the whole, hire the hot young assistant. That doesn't really, that's not him.
Geez, why would you not want to?
I'm not.
Look what Sean McVay did. Look what Kyle Shanahan was on.
I know. I'm just saying that's not his track
Jimmy
record.
Garoppolo got injured. I know, but you got to think differently when you've had 25 years of mediocrity at best.
Yeah.
And he did win with a college coach. He won 2 Super Bowls. You could argue 3 with a college coach.
No, I'm okay with a college coach. I'm saying I don't think he'll go with the young hot assistant in the NFL.
I think he should and hope he gets lucky. I hope hope you get the next Sean McVay, a forward-thinking, great play caller.
Is Josh McDaniels that guy, or is that
Josh McDaniels would be that guy? And some people don't think he'll ever get another chance. I would make a run at Josh McDaniels. He would be the first guy I would go after for a lot of reasons, despite his failure in Denver as a head coach, despite the fact that Colts had him agreed to a deal. He was hiring coaches, including Matt Eberflus from the Cowboys, and then he reneged on the deal. I think he would come to Dallas if he had an opportunity to be the head coach here. Can Jerry trust him? I think that's going to be difficult. But you look at what he does week to week with that game plan, and everybody thinks it's just Tom Brady, and it's not just Tom Brady. You look at all the things that they do. I mean, they lose their running back, and they make a receiver, kick returner their running back. They lose Rob Gronkowski, they win 2 games and score 69 points in 2 games. I mean, they are just able to coach around so many problems that he has to be an interesting guy because of the way he coaches quarterbacks, calls plays, develops talent, solves problems. He's great at it.
I would interview every offensive coordinator they've lost to this year. Whoever this guy was tonight.
That's maybe a lot of interviews.
That's
Matt LaFleur. He's a Sean McVay guy. He was with
he's
McVay.
Not kin to David LaFleur, is he? That would be a strike.
That was an Aikman guy.
That's right.
That Tease Aikman, that was his guy.
Troy will appreciate that. Ed, good stuff. We will have a big presentation following Sunday night, and we're going to have a big watch party that a lot of folks are going to show up to. And then, Ed, I think you'll be out of state, but you will be in our beautiful Colorado studios. And we will, hey, at that point, if they're 4-5, there's some excitement. The season's there's still something to talk about. At 3-6, this thing's over, and we'll get hot and heavy on who these next head coaches might be. Ed, it's been great. I think we need to thank Stretch, Frito Nation Productions, and Mark Frito Friedman. DJ Ringenberg, I thought, did a nice job tonight out here at the stadium. He's a longtime colleague of mine.
We'll see when we hit the link what kind of job he did.
When we, see if any of this actually goes to air. But he's with 103.3 FM, works with some of those sad saps over there. But we love having DJ with us. And Ed, good job tonight, and hope everybody has a good evening. Thanks, everybody. It's been the Doomsday Podcast. Good night, everyone.
Well, Christmas lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore. This year will not be like the ones before. And the streets are all but empty, the bars have all shut down, and it's hard to find a friend inside this godforsaken town. That emptiness, it feels from your head down to your toes. I'm sorry, baby, that's just the way it goes. Once you were a young girl with lovers by the score, money by the handful, you never wanted more. But they tend to leave you as time has its way, and they leave behind little mouths to feed the dreams. And the days go by so slowly when it used to go so fast. Whiskey does not taste as good when you only pour one glass.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.